All right, guys, today we'll react to this press conference of Zac Taylor. He actually just gave it, so I want to go ahead and give my reaction. As always, I'm going to create the audio of the reporters, put the questions on the screen, and also try to pull whatever coach is saying on the screen. Now, what you will see is that with this video, the reporters are actually pretty dang loud. So, this is like, I basically want to say like a conference type of call thing where it's like, in the moment where it's not actually like they're in front of them. It's just like over video chat. So this might be a tad bit easier. That's why also coach is like shoved up to the screen because he's in front of a webcam. Just a little key tip there.
Okay. Gonna first of all ask you the decision to keep 10 offensive linemen, it appears, 4 running backs and 6 wide receivers. What went into that?
Tough decision. Those are just decisions we think was best for our team right now. But again, we felt like we had a really strong roster, tough decisions to be made, and that's just where it fell for us.
I will say for the offensive linemen, I'm not that surprised. I mean, if you looked at the offensive linemen, by the way, the 10 offensive linemen we kept was Jackson Carman, Orlando Brown, Alex Kappa, Cordell Volson, Jonah Williams, obviously Collins. We kept Trey Hill, Cody Ford. Who else we kept? Got Max Sharping, and then there's one other guy we kept. Hey, let me think. Left tackle was Jackson Carman, Orlando Brown. That's 2. Left guard we kept was Cordell Volson. Center was Teddy K, and it was Trey Hill. Right guard was Kappa and Max Sharpinger. Right tackle was Cody Ford, Jonah, and Collins. That's the 10 we kept, guys, by the way. Which, again, like I said, it's not surprising because Jackson Kirkland wasn't really that great. He looked really bad in training camp and throughout the whole entire process. Ben Brown? Yeah, Ben Brown didn't look good. Nate Gilliam didn't look good. I mean, there's Hakeem looked like kind of mid, kind of not bad. Oh, we also kept Devonta Smith. I think the reason why they say 10 is because, what's his name? Collins is on, he's on PUP list right now. But those 10 we kept. And again, like I said, those other guys just didn't look good. Akeem probably looked okay, but they kept Donta Smith over him, which honestly I probably would have done so too.
Zac, do you anticipate Joe Burrow practicing this week?
We'll see.
Zac, did Browning win that job in your opinion, or was it just maybe settled on?
You kind of broke up a little bit.
Take the bull by the horns.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Did Jake? Yeah, sorry. Did Jake Browning win?
Can you go one more time?
Reminds me of 2020 trying to do press conferences where everyone has a webcam. The guy muted his mic by accident.
Yeah, sorry, Zac. I was just saying, did Jake Browning win the number 2 job? I mean, did he take the bull by the horns for you?
Yeah, I thought Jake did a good job. I thought both those guys really gave us what we wanted there that last 2 weeks. But Jake was deserving of that opportunity, so he's the number 2 quarterback, and feel confident with where he ended training camp at.
Would you kick the tires elsewhere for a number 3 at this point?
We'll give it 24 hours to see how it all shakes out at the quarterback spot.
That being said, does that include potentially finding somebody who could come in and be the number 2, or are you set on Jake being the number 2 no matter what happens over the next 24 hours?
I feel really good about Jake being the number 2.
Zac,
I feel like you have to say that no matter what. I'm not saying this is like 1000%, coach doesn't believe in Jake Browning, right? But at the end of the day, you kind of have to say that because unless you have another option to bring in, there's no reason to put down Jake Browning and say we don't trust him or we don't 100% believe in him. So you kind of have to say that as a coach. It's not really 100% like you might not believe that 1000%, but you kind of have to say it just to kind of make unless we have another guy, we believe in him.
Stanley Morgan obviously has been a big part of your guys' team, special teams for him. Is there a thought or plans of trying to maybe bring him back as part of another IR return, or is this just a really tough cut that you had to do in special teams room?
Yeah, it was a tough conversation, certainly. He's been a part of 4 years worth of teams here and been a part of a lot of the ups and downs. So difficult conversation when you're dealing with guys like that. Certainly appreciate Stanley and I love Stanley. And again, we'll continue to see how things shake out these next couple of days.
Kind of the same thing with Mike Thomas, Zach. He has said he'd be interested in coming back to the squad. Anything there? Would he be an option there?
Similar. I mean, those are two guys that, of course, have been very valuable to us for a lot of different reasons, and two of the harder conversations certainly today.
From a health
Injury
standpoint,
wise. Yeah.
Go ahead, Charlie, and then I'll get you, James. Go ahead, Charlie.
are there any, kind of the in-season IR? Are there any guys that might be going on to that, or have you avoided with, where you're at from a health standpoint, needing to put anyone on that short-term IR?
Yeah, we'll see. No decisions have been made today on any of that.
Along those lines, how is Joseph Osai doing after the other night?
We're going to get more information here today and tomorrow to be a little more conclusive on that.
And I talked about, so I got a lot of comments about that. A lot of people say, like, why was he playing preseason? He shouldn't have been playing preseason. That's absolutely ridiculous. He got hurt for no reason. We didn't have to get him hurt. Coach did talk about this in his last press conference. I don't know. He didn't really go too much into it. But what he said was he needed reps. That's pretty much all he said about it, was that Joseph Osai needed reps, and that's why he ended up going out there and playing. Even though, yes, as a Bengals fan, we might question it, Coach thought he needed reps, and he needed reps. So it is what it is. Obviously, I think he has I don't say high ankle sprain, but we don't know how long he'd be out for. Again, you can't speculate on anyone's injury. Everyone's body is different. Now, what I'm going to try to do during this video is actually show up the roster. This is the final 53-man roster, and kind of go wherever the questions are asking and kind of look at the roster based on that. Because obviously they're going to ask a lot of questions based on, how the final roster fills.
You mentioned that there were some decisions that kind of came down to the wire over the last few days. What are these few days that lead up to cut down day like for you guys in terms of those decisions, but also in terms of the conversations that you inevitably have to have?
Yeah, you meet upstairs, for the last really 3 days since the game with Duke and his staff and in ownership, and make sure everyone's voice can be heard on how everybody feels about the roster and where we need to end up. And at the end of the day, always get on the same page and feel really good about, the 53 guys that made the team.
Zach, I know cut down days always tough. Was it almost more challenging this year? Because even coming into camp, at least from my view, it didn't feel like there were many spots potentially available. And I know there's always competition, but was this even harder to get to 53 than past years?
I think it was. I would agree with that. In my 5 years here, I think this is the hardest, and it is the hardest because you have a higher number of quality players that are worthy of being on it, as opposed to, maybe there's years where you have 49 or 50 and you're trying to sort through it. And it can be difficult that way too. But I think this year just I thought our 90-man roster was as strong as it's ever been. And so obviously that leads to more difficult decisions there for the final 53.
Yeah, because you cut Raymond Johnson III, man. Raymond Johnson III, Shaka Haywood, and Owen Carney. Those are the 3 players I wanted on this team, and all 3 got cut. It is what it is. I'm not going to be upset.
Does it say about your special teams and the depth of this team that you took 2 veterans and waived them essentially?
Sure. I mean, it's you're relying on some younger players at some of those positions. That's the nature of pro football, when you need these young guys to step up. And somebody said earlier, grab the bull by the horns and take ownership of the responsibilities they have now. And so again, we're encouraged with all those young guys. We feel obviously like they can do it. Now they just got to do it once the real season starts here.
Lyle Collins still on PUP, but where is he at in your plans for this season?
Still weeks out, certainly. So hard for me to predict that right now.
I think what the reporter is trying to ask, and they didn't ask correctly, because they're saying, where is he at with the PUP list? What they're trying to ask is, what's your plans using him this season? Meaning, once he comes back from the pup list, if he does come back from the pup list, let's say if he doesn't end up on the pup list, but let's say if he does, where are you going to use him? Are you going to use him at right tackle? Is he going to be the starting right tackle instead of Jonah? That's what I think the reporter was trying to ask, and I think Coach said it best, meaning that that's in the future. That's a future problem to talk about.
I know you said you'll see about whether Burrow practices or not, but given all the time since he had the injury in July, where is he at from a health perspective as we get ready for that season opener in week 1?
Health other than the calf, you mean?
Well, just how is it? How is he from a health perspective as he gets as y'all get ready for week 1?
I think he has a very healthy body, and I'm encouraged by that.
I mean, Collins did say 2 months ago that he felt like if he put a brace on his knee, he could go out there and play. He did say that. So, to the aspect of what Collins said, the player directly, that he feels like he could go out there and play.
Just following up one more on Joe Burrow, is there any connection to his practice availability to what's going on with his contract situation?
No.
Every single analyst tomorrow, it's because of the contract. He's not playing. He's Lamar Jackson. We have Lamar Jackson-esque. Stupid analyst.
There are still decisions to be made on the practice squad tomorrow, and so much is made of the 53-man roster and the cuts that happened today. How important is it though for specific guys, for you all to get specific guys on your practice squad? And why are those decisions important?
Well, twofold. It's really now just an extension. To me, you have a 69-man roster with 21 inactives on game day because you can standard elevate, with the COVID rules that have become permanent rules for us. So there's a group of guys on the practice squad that you feel like, man, these guys could play for us quickly on game day if you have an injury or the situation calls for it. And then there's other guys that are more developmental, maybe younger guys that you want to keep in your system and on your roster and in your organization that you continue to develop. That maybe they aren't ready to play in a real game right now, but you feel like in time they will be, and so you want to continue to invest in them. So I'd say with the larger practice squad now with 16 players, different guys fall in different places on the scale, but they're all here because we think that they're going to ultimately help our organization.
Zach, I want to ask you about 2 rookies, the first of which, Charlie Jones, obviously came in battling for that punt returner job. What did you see from him? I assume that had something to do with moving on from Trent.
I think he improved every single week. I think he became more and more comfortable with what we're asking him to do, continued to make more and more plays in the games and in the practices to the point where we felt comfortable making this decision. Again, it's hard anytime you're parting ways with a player like Trent Taylor, who we have a lot of respect for. He's made some big plays for us over the years. That's a difficult decision, but it does speak to Charlie and the improvement we feel like he's made, and we feel like his best days are certainly in front of him.
I think really, and just trying to piggyback on what Coach says, yes, Charlie Jones looked good, but also keep in mind that Charlie Jones is the direct replacement for Tyler Boyd. At the end of the day, he's going to be the direct replacement for Tyler Boyd in the end. And he is the slot receiver, right? So, like, for example, Yoshi is an outside receiver. He would be a rotation guy with, like, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, while Tyler Boyd, his only real replacement, if, we don't re-sign him this year and he's in the last year of his contract, so he's going to leave us after this year, would be Charlie Jones, Chuck Sizzle. So, you kind of also have to keep Chuck Sizzle for that said reason, even if he was, like, kind of, so far in preseason, he looked pretty good. He had, like, I think 100 yards on, like, 10 receptions. But, like, even if he was looking awful, you kind of go, he's the slot guy. So we're going to see how he develops. Also, he looked really good in college. But that's not the point.
And then DJ Ivey. It was a pretty stacked cornerback room coming in, I think, when he was drafted. And for him to be able to make a push to make the team, what have you seen from him?
Yeah, just, again, every day improving. Felt like he really competed even in that last game, was around the ball quite a bit, made some plays on the ball. So again, a guy that we feel like is only going to continue to improve and felt like was worthy of a 53-man roster spot.
I got to say right now, I think Poison Ivy might have played the best outside of Yoshi. He played the best of any rookie in preseason, 1,000%. And yeah, he didn't put up crazy numbers or crazy stats, but the amount of plays that he, like, they did not target his side or target him at all is absolutely baffling with how amazing he actually played.
Zach, how
Coach, you got
competitive was the tight end position? And
That's
your
difficult.
decision to keep Mitchell Wilcox?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Mitch, certainly we got a lot of confidence in Mitch, but felt like guys really stepped up in that room. You know, the depth of that room started to show up as camp went on, and so not an easy decision. You know, there's again just the way the roster fell, you ended up keeping three, but felt like that was a room that continued to improve, and there was some guys we like in there.
Coach, with the changes in the practice squad since COVID, I mean, is it basically a 69-man roster? I mean, as opposed to the old days?
You can certainly look at it that way. You know, just with the way that you can elevate a player and then not have to subject them to waivers like you used to when you have to sign a player off the practice squad. So it really, again, you're looking at 21 inactives on game day. I know you only get 3 of those opportunities to elevate each guy, but that's probably the clearest way to look at it.
Zach,
Yeah.
how would you define or how would you assess Jackson Carman's preseason and training camp, and what led to the decision to keeping him on the roster this year?
Yeah, I think you see a lot of really good things from Jackson over the course of camp, and you can lump him in with a lot of guys there that are maybe not starters right now. That you're just looking for the overall consistency, but you can see the talent, you can see the ability, and things to be excited about.
What do you like about the options you have for your third down backs this year?
Still competing. You know, Travion Williams is much healthier now, so I think we'll be able to integrate him back into practice this week. And so, you kept 4 backs there, and we know what Mixon's role is going to be. You know, he's a great first, second down back for us that we want to continue to feature any way we can. I thought Chase had a good preseason. Chris had a good preseason. Then now Travion gets a chance to jump back in the mix. So I think those roles are a little bit still to be finalized, and we got a couple more practices to iron all that out.
I know a lot of people were surprised we kept Travion Williams and Chris Evans, but again, like I've said many times in my videos, I think they love Travion. He's so good on special teams, and again, he was injured, so they really didn't get to see how good he was. So it is a thing where, once the season kicks off and say a couple games in the season, if Travion he could end up on the practice squad. Just keep that in mind. Just because you're not cut today does not mean you can't get cut during the season and someone else gets picked up. But I did think they love him so much. And again, his injuries definitely helped out a tad bit with that.
How difficult was the decision to go with Brad as your punter and release Drew?
Yeah, tough because Drew's a quality punter, and he's done great things for us, and certainly hope that he gets an opportunity somewhere else to further his career. But I think it speaks to Brad and the camp that he's had and the confidence that we have in him. He's jumped in, really doesn't appear to be a rookie, fits in like he's a vet. Have the confidence for him to show up in a divisional game week 1 and be able to perform like we need him to. And so pleased with what we saw from Brad over the course of training camp.
So often, Zach, rosters can change pretty drastically over the next week or two, and it's often said the roster you have at the first 53-man cut isn't the one you necessarily go into the season with. Do you see that kind of trend continuing this year?
Really impossible to predict today, and certainly evolves over time. I don't know that I confidently would have that answer. I could give you one, and my opinion could change 24 hours from now. So hard to predict. I think you're doing yourself and the organization a disservice if you're not looking at what's else out there. But again, I felt like this is the strongest 53 we've had from top to bottom, and so we if our roster stands pat as it is, we'll be very happy with that.
That's actually like a surprising question the reporter would ask, because that's a very obvious and basic question. Like, at the end of the day, yeah, when waivers hit and players get cut from those teams, gotta keep in mind every single team is cutting down like 30 plus players, So whenever these players become available, it would be idiotic, as coach says here, to not look at those players and see, hey, is that guy the best option for us, or do we have the best option? Like, for example, Jalen Davis is right now, he's going to be our 5th cornerback going into this year, right? Well, what if somebody gets cut from a team that looks better than Jalen Davis? Well, we might go pick him up and go after him. So it's kind of an idiotic question, especially when, they asked him earlier, hey, listen, are you going to be interested in bringing in a third quarterback potentially, if one becomes available? And he said, yeah, we'll keep our option open. We're always trying to make the team better. So that question was kind of iffy.
I think this is your youngest. I'm pretty sure this is your youngest roster. Does it feel like that, or is it something that kind of injects you a little bit, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think we got really young talent. I think as your roster gets more expensive, it also gets younger in some areas as well. That's just the nature of the NFL and how it unfolds. But at the same time, I think that Duke has done a great job with the draft. It's all these guys we've drafted over these last couple of years feel like they're playing key roles for us, whether they're starters or depth players or featured on special teams. And so, it does speak to the young talent that we have, and that we're really impressed by a lot of those guys.
Zach, you have 2 practices this week before you get into game week next week. What will your emphasis be with these 2 practices before the team breaks for the weekend?
A mixture of things. There's a whole mixture of things. You start to preview Cleveland and get ready for that. You start to continue to fine tune some things that you're going to need over the course of the season. So there's a couple different things that we'll be hitting on these next couple days.
Anything else for Zach?
Do you look at these last few practices as an extended part of game week, or is there a defined line between this is the end of preseason stuff and now it's game week once you get into that week?
It's a good question. I think we owe it to ourselves to start to preview Cleveland to be ready for that. At the same time, you can over prepare. It's when you're putting together 6 practices on a team, it can start to feel like a lot. So you want to keep the game week fresh for the guys, to keep their attention, keep their focus on Cleveland. So there's some things that we'll blatantly introduce. There's some things we'll subtly introduce, and then there'll be some things that we're just revisiting over training camp that we'll want to be able to pull out, in the first 5-7 weeks of the season, that maybe we didn't hit as much in training camp as we're going to need once the season goes.
All right, Zach, thank you for your time.
I mean, listen, I love how Zach answers in all honesty, because Coach he does a great job of kind of putting everything in front of you in basic terms, so that it's like pretty much like he doesn't give too much, because listen, he can't at the end of the day. He can't say too much, but he says enough where he answers your question in a very logical way. So I will say overall wise, yeah. I mean, this next couple of days with waivers hitting, we're going to see a lot of players hit free agency. And there's going to be a lot of teams going after those free agents and trying to target those free agents. That could potentially be a couple, 3, 4, 5 players that get signed to our roster. You got to keep in mind, if 5 players go on your roster, 5 players have to come off your roster. So those going to be players that, we end up picking up. Now, there will also be players that get picked up to the practice squad, right? That's another part of football, is the practice squad. So it's going to be interesting, guys. Tell me down below your thoughts and opinions, though. I'll see you guys next one. Peace out.